Yeah, hello. My name is Gerald Koessl from the Austrian Federation of Limited Profit Housing Associations. I'm working on research and policy. I also do work at the European level. We're a member of Housing Europe. I'm very happy to present some of the ways the Austrian system of limited profit housing works. And I have prepared a few slides for that, which I'm going to launch now. So just give me a second. Okay, so I'll start straight into it. I have put 4 questions here that I'll try to answer as briefly as possible and as clear as possible, hopefully. So I'll start with the first question is what is actually limited profit housing in Austria? Limited profit housing is provided by so-called limited profit housing associations. It is a sector that houses 1 in 6 Austrian households, so 700,000 households in Austria, with a total number of households about 4 million in Austria. So 1 in 6 households live in limited profit rented housing. So it's a significant share in the housing market. Limited profit housing associations are private organizations. They are either cooperatives or limited liability companies, similar to what I think is SRL in Italy. Their mission is to provide affordable housing for current and also for future generations. So the way that this system works is that there's a legal framework, a governance framework that regulates the sector. These organizations are exempt from corporate tax, and if you have this status that any organization, any housing provider can be awarded if they are willing to operate under these conditions, then as a limited profit housing association, you are obliged to calculate cost-based rents. So it means when you build some new housing, you calculate all the costs, the land cost, the construction cost, and you divide that up within the building, and that's the cost that tenants are going to pay. So not less than that, but also not more than that. It is called limited profit housing because there's profits are possible, but they're strictly limited, and all the profits have to be reinvested. And that's why we speak about revolving funds in this context, because, as I said, profits are possible, but they have to go back into new construction. And limited profit housing is targeted to broad target groups. That's also something unique, I think, in the European context, that it's not housing only for low-income households, it's for low and middle-income households. So in the cost rent, when the cost rents are calculated, what is included here, it is in the beginning, in the first 30, 40 years, it's mainly through rental payments, you cover loans repayments. So you get rent payments from tenants, and you pay with these rent payments, you pay back the bank loan, the public loan. You also save money for maintenance and improvement from the very beginning. You also build up a risk reserve just to make the organization also more resilient. And you include a limited surplus, especially in the older housing stock. And this, as I mentioned before, is used to build up the equity of an organization and to reinvest for future housing. So in a way, the cost rents strike a balance between affordability, so the interests of tenants to have secure, affordable rental contracts on the one hand, and the financial viability of the organization, because these organizations I mentioned at the beginning, they're private organizations. They have to be financially viable, and they have to recover the investment costs, and they have to serve the debt obligations to banks, to public authorities, and they have to cover the cost for operation and maintenance. So it is a system that tries to strike a balance between this affordability element and the financial viability at the same time. How is it financed? So limited profit housing associations draw mainly on 4 different sources of funding. The first one, probably the most important one, is actually regular bank loans. So organizations go to banks and they get loans at a relatively good condition because they are in a good financial situation, most of these organizations. So they get regular bank loans. The second, almost equally important, are public loans. So when we talk about subsidized housing in Austria, we talk mainly about loan funding, public loan funding, and that is provided by regional governments. So in the case of Vienna, for example, the municipality of Vienna provides a low interest loan over 40 years with an interest rate of 0.5%. And these loans are repaid. So the public authority provides a loan, but also has repayments from those loans. The third source is the equity of the housing associations. I mentioned before that they are allowed and actually supposed to generate surpluses, profits, but those have to be reinvested. So they invest that into new housing, especially to buy land. And the fourth source, the tenant equity contributions, which are a payment that are due at the beginning of a tenancy, and tenants get paid back that amount when they move out from that home. Just an example from EIB funding from the European Investment Bank. A few Austrian banks have been quite successful in getting EIB funding, and we've heard several times that the cost-based rents that I mentioned, which are making sure that loans are also repaid and the debt is served on the banking side, making it also very attractive for the EIB to invest into affordable housing construction. So this is a specific example that I've just received from Erste Bank, Erste Bank Green Housing, this program is called. And there you have specifically EIB funding for constructing energy efficient housing. So there is conditionality on the energy efficiency aspect. And the EIB covers up to 75% of the total investment cost, or 50 million euros. So the attractive element in that is also that you have a very long-term fixed interest rates. So in this case, a fixed term interest rate up to 34 years, which is quite exceptional to get that from a bank, which makes also the cost rent calculation a lot more predictable if you have secure and reasonable financing conditions. So how does that impact on tenants? How much rent do tenants actually pay, and what are the impacts on the wider housing market? If you look at the rental costs I've compared here, private rented sector rents and rents in limited profit housing. So if an average flat in limited profit housing is 75 square meters, and if you include all the service charges, but without energy costs, you have an average amount in Austria of about 600 to 700 euros in limited profit housing. And if you look at the private rented sector, it's significantly higher. And the difference shows especially in cities where private sector rents are significantly higher. For example, in Vienna, you have for an apartment, 75 square meters, you would have a rent of about 1,300 euros compared to limited profit housing, which is about 740 euros. So you can see a significant price difference. A lot of it is not actually due to the fact that it's subsidized in the limited profit housing, but it's just because it's calculating only the cost of managing and repaying the loans on that object. So you have quite a big significant difference in rents that are mainly due to the fact that it's cost-based and not profit-based rents. And the economic impacts are quite interesting. We've done two studies with an economics research institute to calculate also the economic impacts of the type of housing, of limited profit housing. And we see that it is increasing the purchasing power, which is logical because you have households have more money left at the end of the month, so they can spend money on other areas in their lives. You also have reduced the housing allowance spend. I'll show that in a moment. Austria spends a lot less on housing allowances, so payments to support households. So that's because you have better affordability in the whole housing sector, and you don't have to subsidize expensive rents through direct payments to tenants. The second study is also interesting because it shows that cost trends have a price dampening impact on the unregulated market. So when you have a housing market like in Austria, where you have private sector unregulated rents and you have a high share of limited profit housing cost rents, It shows that these cost trends are in a way a signal on the housing market to the real cost of housing, and they impact and they have a price dampening effect on the overall rental costs in a particular area. And there's the two links with the sources that you can read more about those studies. So how much does it actually cost to maintain, to build up a system like that? I told you before that it's mainly loan funding that goes into that system. So when you look at the total expenditure on housing in different European countries per capita per year, you can see that Austria actually doesn't spend a lot of money compared to other European countries on housing. And that's mainly because most of the amount or the public expenditure in Austria goes into constructing new housing that is affordable in the long term. So you don't need to subsidize housing in the later stage of a project. And you can see that in other countries, especially countries that rely a lot on housing allowance payments, so payments to tenants to pay rents that are expensive, they spend a lot more on housing than, for example, Austria does. So that's to conclude from my side, and I thank you for your attention and enjoy the rest of your conference. Thank you very much.